You've felt it before, subtle, nearly imperceptible, a look that lingers too long, a question that isn't a question, but a disguised command, a compliment wrapped around a leash. The world teaches you that love, friendship, and community are pure. But beneath the surface lies a deeper, darker truth. Most people don't want to connect with you. They want to possess you. Control rarely arrives with a shout. It comes in whispers, in smiles, in carefully crafted moments of concern. But once you see the machinery behind their kindness, you'll never be the same. The hidden hunger behind manipulation. People crave power not because they are strong, but because they are empty. A hollow soul finds refuge in domination. To control another is to forget even momentarily the unbearable weight of one's own insignificance. And so they reach for you, not out of love, but out of fear. You become their canvas, their anchor, their proof that they matter. Manipulation is rarely loud. It is quiet. It hides inside the everyday. "I'm just worried about you," they say, as they chip away at your confidence. "I'm only trying to help," they murmur, while steering you into submission. It is not overt hostility, but a gentle corruption of your will. They will cloak their needs in your language. They will use your empathy as a weapon against you. Why dominance is disguised as concern. The most effective chains are the ones you think you chose. A mother who only wants what's best. A partner who just cares too much. A friend who can't believe you do that. These are not acts of support. They are veils underneath a desire to mold you into something safer, something predictable, something controllable. And it works because it feels like love. But real love does not seek to dominate. Real love does not fear your independence. It doesn't flinch at your wildness. It holds space for your growth, even if that growth means walking away. But those who fear your freedom will always dress their fear in concern. They will warn you, guilt you, softly shame you, until you forget who you are. The subtle art of emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is the currency of cowards. It is the art of making you believe that your choices hurt them, that your truth is cruelty, that your boundaries are betrayal. They say things like, "If you loved me, you wouldn't do this. After everything I've done for you, I guess I just don't matter to you." These are not expressions of hurt. They are silent contracts. They are meant to bind you, to make you responsible for emotions that do not belong to you. And if you accept that contract, your life becomes theirs. You begin to shrink, to apologize for existing too loudly, to question your joy, your decisions, your path. But make no mistake, every time you betray yourself to keep someone else comfortable, you lose a piece of your soul. When love becomes a leash, there is a kind of love that does not liberate. It enslaves, it flatters you, rewards you, then tightens when you wander too far. It tells you you're special, so long as you remain in the cage. It whispers promises, but only if you stay small. This is not love, this is addiction. You become addicted to their approval. Their smile becomes your North Star. And the moment they withdraw it, you panic. You wonder what you did wrong. You try harder, you become more agreeable, more obedient, less you, and so the leash grows stronger. Real love says, go, be, change, expand, even if it means I lose you. False love says, stay, obey, fit, and I will reward you with my affection. And most people choose the leash because freedom is terrifying, because solitude is a mirror, because being truly oneself means risking being truly alone. But you are not most people. You are beginning to see the strings, the manipulation, the hunger behind their smiles. This chapter is not just a revelation, it is a mirror. It shows you who they are, yes, but more importantly, it shows you who you've become in their presence. Have you traded truth for peace? Have you silenced yourself to be loved? Have you mistaken control for care? This is your wake-up call. The seduction of control is only powerful when you're asleep. But now you are beginning to awaken. Chains are not always made of iron. Sometimes they are made of memories, of words repeated in low tones, of childhood silences and the slow drip of guilt passed from generation to generation. The cruelest prison is not built with stone. It is built within the mind, and most never even notice the bars. This chapter is not about rebellion yet. It is about revelation, about dissecting the invisible. You must see the mechanics of your own submission before you can break free from it. Guilt as a currency of control. Guilt is not a moral compass. It is a leash. When someone wants power over you, they don't need to raise their voice. All they need is your conscience. They condition it slowly. They attach shame to your natural instincts. They frame your desires as selfish. They teach you that your boundaries hurt others, and so, over time, you begin to pay with your guilt. You say yes when you mean no. You smile when you are drowning. You offer comfort while you bleed, because someone taught you that your discomfort is the price for keeping others happy. But guilt is not truth. It is the residue of someone else's agenda. It is the mark they left on your internal compass, so they could steer you even in their absence. Burn it. Rebuild your own north. Fear, the perfect tool of obedience. Fear is the sculptor of the obedient soul. They tell you, be careful. They say, don't rock the boat. They warn, what if you end up alone? But fear is rarely about reality. It is about limitation. It is about carving your world small enough to be controlled. The person who fears losing you will teach you to fear leaving. The person who envies your fire will teach you to fear burning. The system that depends on your submission will teach you that questioning is danger. And so, you shrink, you avoid conflict, you compromise too soon, you accept less. Because fear wears the mask of caution, but its true name is captivity. You were born with fire in your chest. Don't let them convince you that smoke means death. Sometimes it means you're alive. The illusion of mutual respect. There's a myth, we're told, that relationships are built on mutual respect, but often they are built on silent hierarchies. One person is the sun, the other a satellite. You orbit them emotionally, socially, psychologically, and you call it love. But it is not love if one voice is always louder. It is not respect if one truth must always be silenced for peace. It is not equality if only one person is allowed to change. Most people do not seek equals. They seek mirrors, someone to reflect their importance, their choices, their worldview. But you were not born to be a reflection. You were born to be a flame, and flames don't orbit. They burn in their own gravity. How silence is forced, not chosen, they say. You're so quiet lately. And they say you've changed. They say, I miss the old you. But what they miss is your silence, your compliance, your role. When you begin to speak, truly speak, some will flinch. Not because your words are cruel, but because they are no longer in control of the narrative. Silence is not always a choice. Sometimes it is imposed through subtle punishments. A cold shoulder, a withdrawal of affection, a sarcastic jab in front of others. These are warnings. Get back in line. And if you fear being unloved more than being untrue, you will obey. But every time you bite your tongue for someone else's comfort, you betray the revolution inside you. Speak, even if your voice trembles, even if your circle shrinks, even if no one claps. Speak because your silence was never consent, it was survival. Now you choose something else. This is the anatomy of the cage. Not metal, but memory. Not locks, but learned fears. But now you hold the scalpel. You see how they built it piece by piece. And if it was built, it can be dismantled. Guilt is not yours. Fear is not truth. Silence is not safety. And control is not love. This is not the end. This is diagnosis. Liberation begins with understanding. There are contracts you never signed, yet you've obeyed them your whole life. They were etched in the glances of your parents, in the unspoken rules of your culture, in the tension between your authenticity and their expectations. These contracts do not ask for your consent. They are written in fear, sustained by guilt, and enforced by the threat of rejection. This chapter is about tearing them apart, about reclaiming your soul from a world that quietly demanded you hand it over. Recognizing the cost of being agreeable, you were praised for being easy to get along with, for being polite, for not making a fuss. But beneath every compliment was a command. Do not disturb the order. Do not question the roles. Do not ask for too much. You became agreeable not because you are weak, but because you were taught that being liked was survival. But what did it cost? It cost your voice. It cost your wildness. It cost the parts of you that didn't fit inside their version of good. Every time you bit back truth to preserve peace, you carved away your spirit. And the tragedy is, they loved the version of you that was dying inside. To be agreeable is to wear a mask soaked in blood and smile through the pain. But now you begin to count the cost, and you realize the approval you bought was never worth the price. The sacred rebellion of saying no. No is a sacred word, not a rejection, but a boundary, a shield, a declaration. I am not here to be consumed. And yet you've whispered it when it needed to roar. You've softened it, dressed it up, hidden it inside explanations, because you were afraid of how they'd look at you, afraid of who you'd become without their permission. But freedom lives on the other side of no. When you say no to what shrinks you, you say yes to your expansion. When you say no to roles you've outgrown, you say yes to transformation. When you say no to being a tool, a mirror, a pawn, you say yes to being fully alive, and it will scare them. Because your no is not just defiance, it is the end of their illusion of control. So say it. Say it without guilt. Say it without a smile. Say it like a sword through the veil. Reclaiming your right to be disliked. Here is a truth they never wanted you to know. You do not need to be liked to be free. In fact, the more you step into your truth, the more resistance you will meet. Not because you are wrong, but because you are no longer serving their story. Some people loved the version of you that tolerated disrespect, that kept quiet when hurt, that bent for their comfort. They will not celebrate your awakening. They will call it arrogance, coldness, selfishness. But your soul was not made to be palatable. It was made to be real. To reclaim your right to be disliked is to rip the mask from your face and say, here I am, whole, flawed, unedited, and those who truly see you will not ask you to shrink. Disobedience as an act of self-love. They told you that obedience was virtue, that following the rules meant you were good, that self-sacrifice was noble. But who wrote those rules? Who profits from your obedience? To obey without question is to betray the divinity within you, because your inner voice is not a servant. It is a sovereign, and when you ignore it long enough, it begins to die. Disobedience is not chaos. It is realignment. It is remembering that you were born with instincts for a reason, that your truth is not a threat, but a compass. When you disobey the systems that demand your silence, you say, my soul is not for sale. When you disobey the roles you were cast into, you say, I am not a character in your play. When you disobey the stories of who you should be, you say, I choose myself, and that is the highest form of love. This is the breaking of the contract, not in anger, but in reverence for your becoming. You are not here to live inside others' definitions of love, success, or loyalty. You are here to burn paper prisons, to walk out of rooms that shrink you, to speak with thunder. To choose a life so honest, it terrifies those who've built theirs on performance. The invisible contract has been torn, and in its ashes, something new begins to rise. They only hold power over you when you need something from them: approval, belonging, validation. But the moment you begin sourcing those from within, the illusion collapses. Immunity is not indifference, it is alchemy. It is the sacred transformation of pain into clarity. It is the silent armor forged from all the times you were broken and still refused to surrender your truth. This chapter is not about running. It's about standing still in your center while the world tries to pull you back into its games. It's about becoming untouchable, not because you don't feel, but because you no longer fear being misunderstood. The inner fortress of emotional detachment. Emotional detachment is not coldness. It is not the absence of love. It is the refusal to be manipulated through love. It is saying, I can care for you deeply and still not betray myself to keep you comfortable. The world will tell you that detachment means you're distant, broken, hard, but in truth, it means you are finally whole. You no longer chase closure from those who harmed you. You no longer explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You've built a fortress, not to keep others out, but to keep your truth protected. And in that stillness, in that sacred space where no one else's noise enters, you begin to hear the purest voice of all, your own. Why needing nothing makes you untouchable. They can only manipulate you if you need what they offer, their approval, their praise, their affection. But what happens when you stop needing it? What happens when you no longer derive your worth from their smile, their words, their presence? You become free. When you no longer fear being disliked, you speak your truth. When you no longer fear being alone, you stop settling. When you no longer crave recognition, you create without permission. Need is the chain. Detachment is the key. You were born whole. Everything you seek already exists within you. The moment you stop begging the world for crumbs, you begin to feast on your own power, and they will feel it. They will sense it, and they will no longer know how to control you. Becoming your own source of validation. Most people were raised on conditional love, praised only when they conformed, rewarded only when they pleased. So they grew up chasing validation, first from parents, then from lovers, bosses, crowds. But external validation is a drug. It fades. It enslaves, it distorts. To become your own source of validation is to turn inward for approval, to ask yourself, not the world, was I true today? Did I act from soul, not fear? Did I choose alignment over acceptance? You stop needing applause when you start respecting your own voice. You stop fearing rejection when you stop abandoning yourself. And the irony is, when you no longer need the world to see you, it begins to notice your light, not because you screamed louder, but because you stopped whispering. The strength in walking alone. There comes a moment on the path when you realize not everyone can follow. Your growth threatens those who still live in masks. Your honesty makes liars flinch. Your presence calls out their absence, and so you walk alone. Not because you are unworthy of companionship, but because the cost of shrinking is too high. Walking alone is not loneliness. It is purification. It is the sacred space where you meet yourself fully without distraction, where you confront your shadows, where you plant seeds no one else can see yet. And from that solitude, strength blooms. The kind of strength that no insult can touch. The kind of peace that no manipulation can reach. The kind of power that flows from within and needs nothing outside to sustain it. You are becoming immune, not bitter but boundaried, not closed but discerning, not arrogant but sovereign. They will try the same games, the same traps, the same words, but they will bounce off your armor of truth. You are not here to be controlled. You are not here to be consumed. You are here to rise, whole and untamed. The spell is broken. The trance is over. You have become the storm they cannot cage. There is a point in every awakening when pain transforms into power, when clarity sharpens like a blade, when your wounds no longer weaken you, they become your armor. This is the warrior's mindset. Not the warrior who conquers others, but the one who conquers themselves, who walks into the chaos of life without flinching, who has tasted manipulation, control, abandonment, and still chooses truth. You have come far. Now you must decide. Will you walk as one who remembers, or will you return to sleep? Living with unapologetic truth. You were taught to dilute yourself, to filter, to adapt. But truth is not meant to be safe. It is meant to be real, and realness costs. It costs approval, it costs ease, it costs relationships built on illusion, but it gives you everything else: clarity, sovereignty, inner peace, the kind that comes when your inner world is no longer at war with the outer. To live in truth is to wake up each day knowing you are not performing, that your yes means yes, that your no is rooted in your bones. This is not rebellion, it is return to your essence, to your fire, to the version of you that existed before the world told you who to be. Turning wounds into weapons of wisdom. Pain is the forge, trauma the anvil. Every wound you've endured was a blade in the making. They wanted you broken, passive, doubting, but you alchemized suffering into insight. You turned betrayal into discernment. You transformed silence into a voice that thunders. This is not to glorify pain, but to recognize its potential. Not all pain destroys. Some awakens. Your scars are not shameful. They are maps, proof that you have navigated hell and returned with treasure. You are not soft because you feel. You are strong because you survived feeling. Now you wield that wisdom not to hurt, but to heal. Not to dominate, but to liberate. Power from within versus power over others. Most confuse power with control, with dominance, with having the final word. But real power has nothing to prove. It does not shout. It does not beg. It simply is. You no longer need power over others because you've found it within. Power over others says, "Obey me." Power from within says, "I obey my soul." Power over others silences. Power from within speaks. Power over others is fragile. Power from within is eternal. And once you taste this inner force, fierce, silent, unwavering, you will never again reach outward for permission. Because you carry the storm within you. You are the source, the call to break free and never return now. The final threshold stands before you. You've seen the strings, felt the chains, torn the invisible contracts. You've remembered your voice, reclaimed your fire, chosen your truth. But knowledge is not enough. Awareness is not the finish line. This path demands action, choice, a vow. So here is the call. Stop dimming your light to comfort the blind. Stop shrinking for people who fear your expansion. Stop explaining your worth to those who profit from your doubt. You are not here to be small. You are not here to be useful to broken systems. You are not here to play a role in someone else's script. You are here to rise, to roar, to write your own myth. Let this be the moment. Not tomorrow, not when you're ready. Now, delete the message you never should have sent. Say the no you swallowed. Walk out of the room that demanded your silence. And never return. Your story does not belong to them anymore. It belongs to the warrior. It belongs to you. If this awakens something inside you, don't let it fade. This is not just a video, it's a mirror. Explore the next chapter of your journey. Go deeper, break further, rise higher, watch the next one. Or better yet, close the screen and start living it.